We are back with the wonderful and cognitively powerful Professor William Gumede. We were asking just now about a lesson for global leaders, or for any leaders for that matter of fact, that they could glean out of this book. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about younger people. You're a professor at a leading university, and you deal with a lot of young thinkers and a lot of young intellectuals. Mm-hmm. For people that don't have a lot of life experience, like your first year students, what is one lesson or maybe even one single chapter from this book that you would like to give them, that you think would have the most positive impact on them throughout the rest of their lives?
I think this is the first thing for me is for young people to read widely. I mean, that's just the start. I mean, from a South African point of view, I mean, we're the worst readers in the world, possibly. And the interesting thing is the countries that innovate, that have been innovating during great disruptions, the countries that read. You think about the Japanese, I mean, there's a reading culture, or Singapore, and they created a reading culture, the same with South Korea. So you can actually see the countries that have done very, very well. And I mean, I did some research and I wrote a paper on reading in the countries that innovated since the Second World War. So the first thing is I would, if you're young, to read and to read widely, to read outside your comfort zone, and to read across disciplines. I mean, the exciting thing about this book is across discipline, from tech to philosophy, to medicine, to economics. I mean, and that's very, very important. Our problem in the country with many of our young people, I mean, I experience with teaching students, is they firstly, sadly, don't read. Yeah. They only read the text, and I don't want my presentation. So that's the first. So to navigate this world of artificial intelligence, I think one of the things at an individual level, but also at a country level, is the people who read widely. That's very, very. It's a very, very important, and I think that's why this is such a wonderful book, because you can see it's wide reading and it's wide knowledge.
I don't know how they even achieved it.
Yeah. So for me, that's really is the start. I mean, one of the people I admire a lot is Warren Buffett, and I mean, and he says he reads every day. He tries. He finishes a couple of books a week. And, I mean, how is that possible? Yeah. And so on. But if you look at a cross-section of books, is to read widely, from economics to science and so on. I think that's very important. And for me, that is what comes out very clear in this book, because it takes looks, it's a panoramic view, and you can only have a panoramic view if you read very widely. And that's very, very important, because for our society, it's not only just for individual advancement that people need to read widely, but for society's future, because you can't innovate without having broad knowledge.
Yes.
You can't. I mean, you can't innovate. I mean, that's a problem. For example, I mean, I'm going to take you back to the politics. Of the ANC, is the political party. Yes. The ANC has been stuck in the loop of not getting a wider knowledge, a wider political and economic knowledge for its members and even for its voters, and has been stuck with one view, but a view that is kind of frozen. Yes. In the 60s, in the 70s. I mean, again, if you take it into the business side, to innovate in the business side, you kind of have to be curious.
To innovate and lead well.
Yeah, you have to be curious. And one of the things that we need to innovate as a country, if we want to get out of this, if we want to thrive out of this great disruption, is we need to make things, we need to manufacture things for ourselves, but for the world. Because when you manufacture things, you need to learn new things. You think of the Japanese, they built cars after the Second World War when they never built cars before. So during that process, a whole society learn and innovate, and then when you build, manufacture things, and you go sell it into another market, and you have to understand those other markets. There's sort of a great learning. Now, one of the things that has happened to our society, we've been deindustrializing.
Yes, of course.
And so on. And we've been deindustrializing because we've been unable to innovate. We haven't been able to come up with new ideas. We've been stuck in the old ideas, outdated ideas. We haven't read.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this book does incredibly well to capture the concept of polymath leadership and the importance of polymath leadership. That, if I can say, I've only met Robin a couple of times. I know David Buckham very well, and both of them are polymaths. They read themselves very broadly, and they are both interested in many facets of society. They're always keeping up to date with these, and that is reflected in the book. And earlier on, you were talking about a golden thread running through the book, and when I initially heard the concept of the book, when they told me that they're going to marry philosophy and science and religion and all these diverse ideas into a single tapestry, in my mind, I thought to myself, this read is going to be a mess. I'll just be honest with you. And I cannot tell you how pleasantly surprised I was in the book, how neat and beautiful the weave of the tapestry was, that all of these ideas started intersecting into one golden thread, just an incredible achievement on the part of the authors and the team that crafted the book. But it feeds back again into this idea that to be a true leader in the contemporary sense, you need to be a polymath, you need to understand the world from a very broad set of perspectives, and I think the book really does that justice.
No, absolutely. I mean, I have actually presided about leadership because, I teach and I've taught members of parliament, all members of parliament. I ran a program for a decade. I've actually just decided to retire from the program because I can't deal anymore with a lack of curiosity and a lack of reading from our elected politicians. And I've also taught a program for many years for members of parliament up to British Commonwealth, so much wider, India, Canada, Australia, where if I compare them with the South African equivalents, I mean, you can see the countries that are doing very, very well, is where you have your average member of parliament, your average political leader are much more widely read and widely travelled. Not only widely travelled in the world, but in their own countries also.
Yes.
And what saddens me is that in South Africa, many of our political leaders do not read. They do not travel in their own country and engage with their own country. This is the world's most diverse society, but they don't engage with the diversity of the country. I mean, we've got national leaders that you would think that they've only lived in the village where they come from because their thinking is still based on that village, based on that little community they come from. Their worldview is of that little village. Yes. Despite the fact that they're sitting in a leading political parties in this diverse society, this incredibly diverse society, and this diverse world. Yes. It's almost painful to see, and I've often seen it online, and I think for me it's been very heartbreaking to see on online platforms young people who engage and you say, well, you're young, you can't have this village view of the world. You can't have a view if you come, say, from, let's say, in South Africa, from a small village in Venda. That's not a world. That's not South Africa. South Africa is bigger, as diverse, and the world is bigger. And then that is why polymaths, leaders, so I think, during periods of great disruption, and it comes out from the book, so the societies that turn around, that are able to thrive, is the quality of the leadership. And a very big part of the quality of the leadership, if you have leadership with a bigger view of the world, well-read leadership, and leadership that understand complexity.
I think when it comes to showing the harm of echo chamber leadership, if I can use that term historically, I think that the authors have absolutely smashed it out the park with one or two specific examples where they show a leader in a certain position in time and history where they have an opinion and they bounce it around in their own little echo chamber, which is kind of like what we see in modern politics now, or in modern leadership, let's call it. And we've seen the kind of harm that takes place when ideas just bounce around echo chambers rather than getting bounced around groups that have polymath cognitive thinking power. You make an excellent point around that.
I mean, also the thing is, I mean, what is our competitive advantage in South Africa in during a period of disruption, even during normal moments, or peacetime moments, it's our diversity. So, and it's not just color or ethnic diversity. The fact diversity is broad. So if you know, in order to innovate, you need to utilize the diversity. But we have political parties that are so narrow based on ideology and same color and same people and the echo chambers that they miss out on this real opportunity. But often you go also business sometimes, because often the same for firms.
Yes,
for firms to
absolutely
thrive,
agreed,
and to build resilience and to innovate, they really have to master diversity in their firms. That's very, very important, and encourage diverse ideas. Listen to diverse ideas and listen to diverse new ideas in order to thrive and to take to thrive in this uncertainty.
In a healthy environment where you've got strong leadership, no matter what facet it's in, you are always going to come up against ideas that make you feel uncomfortable and some ideas that make you feel very comfortable. And that's in a place where leadership is thriving. And that's the experience I had during the book, that I was reading through the book and at times I was like, yes, I'm right about the world, because I think that the book is correct on this particular issue. And there was times where I was so deeply challenged morally, ethically, challenged just in terms of my knowledge base. And that is why I enjoyed the journey of this book so much, because I had to go through this roller coaster of, yes, I'm right, oh, wait, you missed the point. Yes, I'm right, oh, wait, you missed the point. And I thoroughly enjoyed that up and down.
You know, so, I mean, disruptions cause discomfort. And if leaders, when they feel the discomfort and societies feel the discomfort, if they try to go to sort of fundamentalism and totalitarianism ideas or strongman leader type of views in the discomfort, that's actually when things go pear-shaped. So we strong leaders feel at ease with the discomfort, use the discomfort as a challenge to innovate, because you can, discomfort can either help you to innovate and to imagine, or it can take you back to the old ideas and the old ways of doing. And so now we don't want that kind of leadership. We want leadership, innovative leadership that actually live with the discomfort and use the discomfort to come up with new ideas and new ways of doing.
There's a way to harness and innovate good leadership. And it's quite well known. It's almost a science. If you go to any of the big universities, you can speak to professors of leadership, and they'll tell you what harnesses innovation and what kills innovation. And I certainly think that we have moved away from the kind of thinking that broadly nurtures innovation in South Africa, as you've mentioned. And I think what this book does in its attempt to act as a bastion of information is it helps to re-entrench that desire for knowledge, that desire to learn, that desire to engage in debate and not be pinned down to any one idea.
It's a curiosity. is at the heart of it. We have to be curious in order to innovate, whether you're in business or in politics or even, in one's career. The curiosity, and that is why reading is so important, because it helps stimulate, and it's just not reading for it, but to read why, to read about the new trends, to read about the past, but not to read in an ideological way, to read broadly, and to be curious. And you can see out of this book, clearly, to put this book together, the authors are curious. This is curious. Curiosity. Why did things happen in a certain way? To try to explain it is a curiosity. And it is very, that's very, very important to have. And I think curiosity is very important in this great disruption. And curiosity to think of many alternative ways of responding. And that's going to be very, very important.
This book drove my personal curiosity on so many issues. It drove me to get a little bit more information around religion, around science, around physics, geopolitics, just so many different things. The book forced me to really think deeply about the way that I saw history and how decisions made historically impact us today, both negatively and positively. So for me, the book, it really nurtured my own personal thought process. If you bumped into an old friend in exclusive books next week, and he said to you, Prof. Gumede, I'm looking for a great book to read, and you would obviously recommend this one, what would you tell him if you just had 30, 40 seconds in passing just to see an old friend and you were trying to convince him to read this book? What would you tell him?
For me, it would be just to say, in terms of why is it important, it's written very well, number one. Number two, it is structured in a very innovative way. But I think the core issue is it's at the right moment, it's at the right time. We are now living in a moment of great disruption. People are anxious, uncertain, confused, frightened. Many people are frightened by all of the changes around ourselves. But it is very, very important to look back at how other societies dealt with disruption. Because, yes, for us, this is a really big, scary disruption. But in other moments in time in the past, they also had scary disruptions. Some societies came out of it very well because they innovated, they were curious, and so on. And I think there's some wonderful lessons of looking back at a society that's done very well during past disruptions, and the society has done very, very badly. So, that's what I would say. Well, here's a book. And then, just the fact of we in a moment where the global order is changing, or rather, let's put it under stress. Sort of Western-led, US-led global order of the post-Second World War is now under stress and is under crisis. I don't think there is immediately right now any alternatives right now. So we've got a crisis of the West as global leaders, but there are not any clear alternatives. The Chinese and the Russians are trying to offer alternative leadership, but when you look at China, it's a communist-based society. Yes, they are innovating, but they're innovating in a totalitarian way.
At the cost of human rights.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that where we want to be? No, that's not where we want to be. And then if you look at Russia, they're not they're in a war. And they're not innovating.
Yeah, Russia's been battling to innovate since the breakdown of the Cold War.
And so on. And I think there's something about the book is it reinforces, I think, although it doesn't state it very clearly, the opportunities. I think even the book, the fact that the book is there, the book has been written, comes at a moment of opportunity, because we've got an intellectual opportunity in South Africa, in this intellectual vacuum of, the sort of declining West, that we as a country can actually provide answers, intellectual answers, to some of the big issues in the world. But we won't be able to provide intellectual answers and intellectual leadership unless we know history. And it's not only Western history, obviously, our own history, developing country history. And we can't do that unless we're curious and we read wildly and we open to new ideas. That's really important. Open to new ideas, open to be uncomfortable and to be in discomfort.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I did have to do that during the book. I had to really dig deep within myself and find comfort in my discomfort, if that makes any sense, especially during certain chapters. There is no human being in the world that is going to read this book that's going to go through the entire thing without challenging themselves personally. You are going to find places in this book where you're going to have to dig deep within yourself to really see and understand how you view the world.
Personally, for me, what's always important as a person that engages with young people is the idea of lifelong learning. We talk about curiosity, about reading, and reading widely, going outside one's comfort zone, engaging with the diversity of society, engaging with the trends, the new trends, technological trends, engaging with, holistically with the world, not in a village, narrow view. But an important part of that is also the idea of lifelong learning, which is very, very important. And I'll be amiss as an academic not to say that.
Yes.
And reading is part of that lifelong learning. I mean, because lifelong learning is not just, you can register at university, but reading widely is part of lifelong learning and skilling.
In fact, I'm overjoyed that you liked the book. I had a feeling that it would be within your wheelhouse and that it would be an enjoyable read, because I certainly enjoyed it. And I must say that it's quite a relief that you did, in fact, because I'm not an idiot.
You pressurized me. It's like, no, it's only going to be. It's short, it's not too long.
Now that we've got the good interview, we can stop sending the debt collectors after you. But I just want to thank you for engaging with us during this process. You are certainly a bastion of light in South Africa's thought vacuum. And I think you've just had a beautiful analysis of the book. Your front cover quote was absolutely amazing. And I know that the authors enjoyed that very much. We've come to the end of our interview, and before we do, I always give the guest one last shot. You get to have the last punch. If you'd like to have any one last say, not even necessarily about the book, maybe you'd like to say something about history or contemporary leadership or education or something that's just within your wheelhouse. If it relates to the book, that's fantastic. If not, this is your free punch.
For me, just to say, this great disruption is the opportunity. So we have to have an opportunity mindset as individuals, collectively as a nation. What are the opportunities? Rather than be frightened, to look at the opportunities. And it's also very important to understand that, yes, this is a frightening moment of uncertainty, but other societies and other times, as this book shows, were also at moments like that. But the societies have done very well. They've looked at the opportunities. They try to innovate. They collaborate. They took a partnership, a collaborative approach. And And that's going to be very, very important as South Africans. We have to use our diversity. In fact, that's going to be our strength during this moment of great uncertainty. How do we partner? But I think we have to tell ourselves we have to do things differently. We can't go back on failed ideologies that failed in other places, in other countries. There's not going to be like one silver bullet. There's not going to be like great truths, not going to take us, and great leaders, big companies. We can't go that way. And, autocratic leadership is not going to take us there where we want to be, to prosperity. But what we have to hold on is our constitution to kind of guide us, and then our diversity, and then to collaborate and work together. And I think that's, and look for the opportunities, but we have to look for the opportunities together. No one single individual will take us to the promised land. And no one ideology will take us into the promised land. No one color will take us to the promised land. And no one political party will take us to the promised land. I mean, for me, that's why it's so wonderful to have a government of national unity as a governance structure of the country, because what it does, it brings our diversity together in our national government, but then we have to use the diversity, we have to use the ideas. What is missing right now with our government of national unity, it needs to also partner with business, with civil society, with professionals, almost like a government of national unity plus. That will help us to innovate.
You have been absolutely amazing. On behalf of Monocle Solutions, on behalf of David Buckham, Robin, Stephen, everybody else that's been involved in this process, I just want to thank you for your time, your consideration. You are a very well-loved voice of reason in an otherwise quite chaotic melee of voices. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration, and we look forward to having you here again at Monocle Solutions in the Mark Tower, Sandton, Johannesburg.